Hi everyone, my name's Liam. I'm a product manager at Google, was a program manager at Microsoft, and I've founded a few startups. And today we're going to be talking about what books you should read as a product manager. This includes people who are interested in product management, who are interviewing to become a product manager, or just good books for on the job of being a product manager. Honestly, they're just really good books. So let's dive into it. So today we're going to be talking about a couple topics. I'm going to give you 45 seconds on why you should trust me. I'm going to give you some good PM books for overview of what a product manager is, some good interview books, some good on-the-job books. I'm going to give you a quick secret PDF that I can't really fully share, and then some books that, if you just want to have fun reading some extra stuff. I don't think they're super critical, but I recommend them. So why should you trust me to read these books? Well, first, I'm a product manager at Google. I work on Google Maps, making sure hundreds of millions of places have accurate information when you look them up. Currently co-founding a startup backed by a VC in New York in the e-commerce space. I was a program manager at Microsoft, where I co-founded the early version of Microsoft Viva. You can go Google to figure out what that is. I founded 3 other startups before, and I was an engineering intern at Tumblr for a summer, which was very fun. So these are books that got me where I am today. And again, I'm not making money off of this. These are just really good books. First section, overview of a product manager and just general good books. If you're only going to read 3 books, read these 3 books, right? So the first one is Cracking the PM Interview. So I'd say this is the single best overview of being a product manager, especially comparing product to other fields so you understand where it fits in kind of a large corporation, right? So comparing to marketing, comparing to finance, comparing to UX, comparing to engineering, and seeing where PM fits. It also gave me a really high level, yet really accurate overview of the PM kind of experience that you have at each company. So when I see each company, we're talking about like large tech companies, Microsoft, Apple, Google. It also gives you perspective on what these companies focus on and how that transitions into the product experience of being a product manager there. So for example, Microsoft, everything is very B2B sales focused. It tells you a lot about how being a PM there, you really think of your customer as being like a company, versus at Apple, you're really thinking about design and the consumer and kind of the marketing aspect of it. Really great book overall. I would definitely recommend reading this book. The second book is Cracking the PM Career. This tells you a lot about how to be great in your career as being a product manager. So definitely after you've interviewed and you're on the job and you want to learn how you can advance, it's, the product role is super ambiguous. And sometimes things get really vague and it's confusing on how to advance your career, how to level up, how to get promoted, what frameworks to use to try and go after complicated problems. This book's really good at just helping you organize your thoughts and questions around how to be a better product manager after you're on the job. It's a huge book. Just take your time reading this. And the last one here, I would say is the most important out of all the books I'm recommending in this section and all sections, is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. You can say what you want about Peter Thiel, and maybe he's controversial to you or not, but his book, it's perfect. Honestly, it's the most important book I've ever read. It teaches you how to build things from scratch, how to really truly find a minimal solution to a problem and test against that problem to find product market fit. And this is great for founding a company, but also really great for building your product and building the next generation of features. It prevents you from really overbuilding useless crap, right? And that's what we really don't want to do as product managers. We want to find the solution that makes sense and not over-engineer things. So moving on to the next section, now we're going to talk about the PM interview. And I have made plenty of videos about the PM interview in general, but these are the books that I recommend to prepare for the PM interview. The first one is Decode and Conquer. Decode and Conquer is kind of just a brute force question answer style PM interview book. It just shows you questions and then walks you through how to answer it best. I got the audiobook on this one. I would not recommend the audiobook. I would actually get the physical book. It has nice photos and diagrams and everything, so definitely do that. It's really good for a refresher if you're going to get back into interviewing. But even if you're in the situation of you are interviewing PMs and you're a PM already, I found it to be a great refresher if you haven't interviewed for a while. The second book is Atomic Habits. Weirdly, this helped me go to the gym more often and become better at following up with people via email and chat. In terms of PM interviewing, I think what it helped the most is actually building the rhythm of studying for interviews and doing mock interviews. So in a previous video that I'll link below, I actually recommend that you do a mock interview every single day, or at least talk to a wall or record yourself saying something and then listen to it back. And this helped me get into that routine and build that structure to make sure I was prepared 30 days in advance. I would also say this book is probably a P2. I just recommend the first half of it. The second half is just kind of repetitive. So the third book is The Design of Everyday Things. And the PM diagram intersects with design. And in reality, all 3, from business to UX to engineering, all include design. Life is about design, and it makes you think about product decisions and the user experience more holistically. Weirdly enough, you'll never look at doorknobs the same or like handles of doors, and it teaches you how to describe a product's purpose with more clarity, right? There's kind of buzzwordy stuff, but read the book and you'll understand. And the fourth one here is Thinking Fast and Slow. I would buy a hard copy of this. I think the audiobook kind of sucks. It was really boring. I almost like fell asleep. The physical book, much better. So it forced me to reflect on my bias. It kind of pushes me to fire from the hip less often and focus more on making decisions analytically rather than emotionally. So it kind of helps you draw emotions out of decisions in life, in business, and much more. So it's super dense. You really got to take your time. I actually took notes in the pages in the physical book. Take your time with this book, but it's a really good read. Now that I'm recommending all these books, I'm very worried that actually people are going to go read every single one of them. The question that comes to mind is, should I read every book that's recommended to me to get a PM job? No, absolutely not, right? Like, you don't have that much time. Outside of the couple books that I recommend in the beginning, Cracking the PM Interview, The PM Career, and 0 to 1, I still believe that mock interviews, frameworks, and pretty much everything else is more important than reading books in this context. So just keep that in mind. But books are really fun to read. So if you like reading, go for it. So moving on to On the Product Manager Job. The second book I recommended for On the PM Job is The $1 Trillion Coach. And I'm reading this now, so I can't really tell you if it's a good book or not. So far, it's great. But you just have the CEO of Apple, the CEO of YouTube, the CEO of Google, and the CEO of Facebook recommending it. On the back, it's pretty crazy, so maybe you should read it. How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is the third book I recommend, and I don't know why I keep putting the most important ones in the last of the list, but this is probably the most important out of this group. It taught me how to find win-win situations between people at companies, but then also in relationships. And when you can't find a win-win, it teaches you how to find leverage to get essentially what you want in a good way. The book is entirely about politics, but it's very relevant, and it's a lot of the strategies I actually use in my day-to-day job today. Now, what is this super secret PDF that I was talking about in the beginning? It's called View from Above, and it's not a book, but it's a long analysis made by a pretty influential PM within Google. I'm going to give you kind of the summary here because I can't share the document, but essentially it goes like this, right? As an individual contributor or a low-level, kind of PM, we need to understand how internal leadership thinks. And this unlocks us to figure out how to influence them to your favor. The analogy that's used goes like this. So let's say you need to buy a new toilet, right? Great. You do some Googling, you do a bunch of research, you measure the area in your bathroom, you get a yardstick or a tape measure or whatever, yardstick, and you talk with your friends about the recommendations. What toilets do they have? You go to a plumber. What does the plumber recommend? Do you want heated seats? Do you want a bidet? Like, so many decisions, right? And finally, you decide on this toilet, right? Many weeks later, your life becomes toilet decision time. That was pretty difficult, right? It took up a lot of time. Let's get it to a Google-wide company scale. You need to decide a new toilet for 200,000 people, right? 200,000 employees. You're getting new toilets for every single employee at Google. This is a different type of problem. 200,000 is the size of a small city in the United States. There's no way you're going to do a great job. Every single person is going to be sacrificing somehow here, right? And it's a totally different way of thinking compared to you just having to buy a toilet for yourself. And this is where the view from above takes hold. Most people thrusted into this position of being a leader at one of these companies with thousands of people reporting to them. Any normal person being put in that position would be fraught with indecision and paralyzed by fear of being a massive failure. When an executive makes a good decision, in reality, it's not because they came up with this idea. It's because they were presented a good option from one of their individual contributors or the people below them. You need to start thinking like this when you're talking to executives. You need to start thinking that they are just shooting from the hip essentially and going off instinct. They're going from the accumulation of all of their experiences, no matter how biased they are, and making a decision based off that. But it's up to you to guide them to find the best decision that makes sense, that they feel fulfilled, that they can get behind. The summary of View from Above is when we're looking up to these leaders and looking at their decisions and confused on why they're making these decisions or why they're answering these questions this way. It's because the view from above down is so much more incoherent and clouded than it is looking up. There's more revelations in the document, but I think I pulled out the most important details. Awesome. And if you just really love reading and you have more time, I think you'll love these books as well. The Lean Startup, Essential Guide to Competition Strategy, The Effective Executive. That one I'm on the fence about. Maybe not read that one. Never Split the Difference, the Talking to Strangers book by Malcolm Gladwell, the originals. All the links are below. They're all sectioned off. If you love reading, these are some great books to read too. And before we go today, I want to tell you just about what you should not read. I've just told you a bunch of recommendations. This is what you should not be going after, is just make sure you look at the authors of these books, right? If they don't have a lot of experience within tech, in terms of years or breadth of multiple jobs and multiple companies, I would not prioritize those books, right? I've seen books written by literal interns that are still in college. I just don't think that there's that much to offer there versus having that breadth or depth. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you like some of these book recommendations. Some of them are kind of generic, but just have to be said and reinforced. And if you found this to be useful, just subscribe to this video, and that tells me I'm doing the right thing. Thanks again. Have a great day, and I'll see you later. Bye.